Okay, folks, this is the story of a tale of two swaps. So, got a 72 Chevy C10 that I picked up moderately cheap. It had a running motor and transmission on it. Apparently, it was a crate motor without a lot of miles on it, but I managed to tear it up. It's a long story, but long story short, I had an oil line fail and ruined that motor. But I bought this truck originally as a roller to install an LS engine in. So it didn't hurt my feelings. This is all was about a learning experience. So this vehicle I did completely different than this one. So this thing, I did research for 2 years. I found a Jeep that had a bad motor in it. I fixed that motor and drove it 2,700 miles, yanked the motor and transmission out and sold it, and found a really good LT, which is the newer version, Gen 5 GM motors. So this is out of a 2019 GMC Sierra. It's got a 8-speed transmission behind it. It was 4-wheel drive. I got the motor, the transmission, and the transfer case for $2,300. It actually came with a wiring harness that I did not use. This vehicle, after doing the research, I bought a kit, and a lot of people don't like the kit, but I bought it from Motec, and it came with the radiator. It came with adapters to adapt my hoses to that motor. It came with it came with a Novak transfer case adapter. So I took the GM transfer case adapter or transfer case off and mounted the Jeep transfer case to this. This is a sport model, so it's a 2.72 to 1 gear ratio transfer case. This is the one that bolts on. The Rubicon one didn't. And I bought it came with the wiring harness. The wiring harness connects the Jeep. This is the GM stuff. This is part of the new stuff, and underneath my dash it has a roster unit and some other stuff. I had to do a little bit of wiring to tie the GM stuff and the roster unit to the Jeep, and that enabled the CAN bus system in the Jeep to operate like it's supposed to. So newer vehicles use CAN systems, and unfortunately Jeep and GM didn't talk to each other, so that was an adapter to make that work. What does that mean? It means that all the digital electronics in your dash will work. So my speedometer works like it's supposed to, which I think it comes off the transfer case on this. My TAC works like it's supposed to, even though I got a GM motor sending signals. The TAC responds like it's supposed to. The cruise control works like it's supposed to. This Jeep did not have tap shift. It was the old 3.8 minivan with probably a 3-speed transmission in it. So that's what my shifter looked like. So in order for my tap shift to work, when I'm shifting this into second or first, I simply raise this up or set it down, and that will tap shift the gears. When I put that in drive, this cruise control works like it's supposed to, and the light lights up on the dash and everything does what it's supposed to do. Also, the CAN system controls the air conditioning, the high pressure and low pressure and the whole 9 yards through a series of, you probably can't see any of the plug-ins, but for a series of plug-ins, it turns on the clutch and turns off the clutch and powers the AC, and so my system works. It also came with an air intake system. I did have to buy a MAF sensor. I had to buy different serpentine belt because the GM system uses an electric power steering pump, and this has a power steering pump. So I use the Jeep power steering pump. I did this swap by lifting the body off, which it took me about 5 hours the first time. I had to take the steering loose. I take all this stuff and lay it over its side now, but I take the brake booster, master cylinder, and ABS loose and move all that stuff to the inside, and I unhook the power steering pump and lay it over on the side, and take the body mounts off, unplug the the O2 sensors and stuff, and unhook the shifter, take off the rear brake lines, unhook the gas tank hoses, drain the antifreeze because unfortunately the radiator stays with it, and then you raise it up. Oh, and I had to suck out all the stuff for the AC. That's what it takes to take the body off. But this kit also came with the battery relocator. So in the stock Jeep, the battery's actually turned the other way and it fills up this space here. The Jeep was actually kind of hard to work on. I can actually get in and change the plugs on this pretty easy. It's kind of hard to tell in the daylight, but there's actually more room in there than what you think. I had to do the AC expansion valve way back there in the back a couple weeks ago. That was a little bit of a pain. But anyway, this is an LT swap. The kit was expensive. The motor wasn't too bad. And then I had to do the exhaust. So total price, just not including the Jeep and all the other stuff that I did with this, was I've got about $1,500 in the exhaust. It is California CARB emissions qualified. This vehicle is 50 state legal. That was very important to me. This is my daily driver. This is why I spent the money on it. I wanted a Jeep that had enough power to drive with these 35-inch tires down the interstate speeds and handle and do all the things it needs to do. And it does. I love this thing. I've got 40,000 miles on it. But this was an expensive build. So $2,300 in the motor. The exhaust was expensive, more expensive than what I wanted to be, but that was catalytic converters and the whole 9 yards. And then the kit was 10 grand shipped. So again, with that kit came the radiator and all the stuff. So I ended up spending a few $100s extra on some other hoses, the serpentine belt, just some knick-knack stuff, reservoirs for my radiator fluid, that sort of thing, and then stuff to make the wiring look neat and do all that. But again, I drive this every day. I wanted it to look like an old Jeep and drive like a new Jeep, and this is a 2008 with a 2019 GM motor in it. So anyway, money spent. So I wanted to do this again, but I wanted to go the other way. I wanted to see how cheaply you can LS swap the world. So I bought this old truck for $7,200, and I drove it. I actually drove it quite a bit. I drove it about 4 or 5 months. I did have to do some work to it. I had to do some brakes. I had to do the carburetor. I had to clean the gas tank. I had to do some things, but for the most part, it was drivable. I did do the whole wiring kit. I did splurge and buy that because I knew I was going to keep this old truck to make the wiring neat. This thing had wires hanging out everywhere. So when I did lock the motor up, again, that was on me, my fault. I began searching for a motor and transmission. I gave $1,500 for supposedly a 5.3 with a 4L60 that was good. Well, I got it home and started investigating. The motor was super clean. I'm not going to bitch about the motor other than it wasn't a 5.3. It's a 4.8. Check your casting numbers. So anyway, I bought that. I did an eBay wiring harness. I bought a fan off Amazon with a clutch on it. I made my own intake with parts off the internet. This isn't going to be my final. It's probably going to end up over here. I am going to do something different with my radiator reservoir, but this is what I got right now. So I installed the motor, and then I find out my wiring harness is bad. I spent $80 on a wiring harness. Yes, I'm an idiot, but this was the whole part of the experience. So after tracking problems and thinking I had motor problems and computer problems, I found out that it was indeed the harness. So I bought a harness from a local HPI rep down in Granbury, and he's been nothing but helpful. That fixed that problem, so the motor runs. I did use a stock, I think this is a Tahoe hose, but I think it's the same as a pickup. And then I made my bottom hose out of 2 different hoses, and I just bought heater hose and just made it work. This is actually my steam port that goes in here. So right now my heater is set up for full-time heat. It is fall now, it's cooling off, so it's gonna be fine in the winter. I was contemplating using all this stuff and to make the AC work. I'm probably gonna go back and use the vintage air stuff and neaten all this stuff up when I get done. It takes me about an hour to pull the front clip off, so it's not that big a deal to do that. I was more interested in trying to get the motor running. So after getting the harness installed and getting the motor running, my very first shakedown cruise, the transmission I had wouldn't even go in reverse. The sunshell was bad. 4L60s, that's a problem. I didn't buy this motor out of a truck. The guy had already unloaded it and started it with starting fluid or whatever. I wish I would have done a little bit more research on that. But anyway, again, the motor's clean, no big deal. So I bought another transmission for $200, slapped it in there, and it wouldn't shift. So I had enough of that, so I actually went and splurged and had the transmission rebuilt. A buddy of mine rebuilt the transmission. When I hit the transmission out, he put a rear main seal and I think the oil filter housing gasket in it, because it was dripping a little bit of oil once I got it running, and solved those problems. So now I've got a running, driving truck. So what have I got in this one? $35 motor mounts. In the back, I actually reused the mount back there. I bought some mounts to try to make the exhaust work a little bit better. Wasn't happy with it. A buddy of mine actually gave me the shorty headers, Amazon shorter headers. I had to go buy the little adapters with the O2 sensors. I bought those from Summit. I think they were 20 bucks a piece. And I bought the shifter rod, Amazon special, for $32. Very simple, it works. I bought all this knick-knack stuff off Amazon. So I've probably got between the $700 I spent on the wiring and then the knick-knack stuff I bought, another, let's call it $500, $1,200 there, 15 motor and the motor and transmission, and then $1,800 for the transmission rebuild, the rear main seal valves. So I'm in this truck, I don't know, 10,000 maybe. I got to go shorten the drive shaft. It's not all the way pressed up against the back of the transmission shaft, but it's close enough that I'm going to go ahead and do that. That's probably going to be $400 to have my drive shaft cut down and built. I'm actually going to do that this weekend, and I got some more stuff that I want to do. But this is a $10,000 LS swap truck that I built myself. I've already done 50 miles of shakedown run. I drove it today. I'm a long way from having it to where I want it, but now I feel like it's a dependable driver. I built the fuel system myself, and it's an external fuel pump for now because this one had an old LMC fuel tank relocated in the back, and it doesn't have a baffle, and it doesn't have a big enough opening to put a fuel pump in it. So I'm going to buy a different tank. I may even have to cut a different hole and then fill that hole. And then I'm going to have an internal fuel pump before I'm done. And probably a few other things, but the external pump and the Corvette return system, because this has a returnless style setup for the intake, I can change that too. There's a lot of things you can do. These LS motors are pretty cool. It did have, when I started, a little bit of a lifter tick. That's long gone. I suspect I probably need to pop that oil pickup tube and clean it and then replace that O-ring, but it has no signs of lifter tick or super low oil pressure or anything now. I don't have an oil pressure gauge hooked up to it right now. I do have a coolant gauge. It runs 200 degrees. I do not know what thermostat's in it. That one had a 208 degree thermostat. I changed it to 194 and it runs 200 degrees. So I'm going to suspect this is probably the same. And, I'm going to do some cleanup with the shroud system and stuff. This was just to get her out and get her running, but it's not leaking anything. I just rinsed all the leaves that had been sitting out in the back, and just trying to clean it up a little bit. The interior is pretty basic. I am doing logging tunes on it now. Actually, I had to do the computer. It was a 5.3 computer, even though it was a 4.8 motor, so obviously those didn't match. I downloaded a 4.8, removed the VATs, and then I cloned the 4.8 onto this computer, and it's got a really clean tune. I mean, everything looks really good. I'm very happy with it. So I've got all of the computer stuff jammed in the glove box. I'm thinking I'm going to try to have somebody 3D print me a rack to stick in there, because I like that look. Another buddy of mine is doing a console and bucket seats in his, and he put all his stuff in his console, and I thought that's a pretty good idea. He did a console shift. He spent a little bit more money than I did on his shifter. I wanted to keep the look of the old hand shift. I actually wanted to keep this truck rustic. I really like this look. The only rust that I have on it is this rocker. The other rocker's clean. I actually have a replacement rocker. I haven't put it in yet. I need to go through and clean up all the lines, because I just slapped this clip on there just to get it going. And I'll probably end up cleaning that firewall and stuff too. But anyway, for the whole price of the kit for that vehicle is what I've got in this one. My goal is to make this just as dependable as that one. That was a 23,000 mile motor when I got it. This is a 140,000 mile motor, what I was told. It doesn't have grease and oil and stuff all over it. It was actually really clean. So I want to do this again. I really enjoyed this process. You put stuff on the internet and people frown at you. Why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? Because I'm doing it. I did it by myself. I had my wife come out and help me with a few things. I think my daughter helped me install the motor in the Jeep. A buddy of mine came over one day and we did some things, but this is all about learning. I don't have a new car. I've got a 2015 diesel pickup that I'll probably keep the rest of my life. I'm 59 years old. It's not like I'm going to have a whole bunch of need for new vehicles. I like driving back and forth to work, and I like driving cool stuff. Also, being in Texas, there's always car events going on. So I'm kind of slowing down from my dirt bike racing, and I like to have something to do on the weekends. Nothing more cool than showing up in one of these at a car event and then going looking at other cars like that. It's my thing. I like looking at old cars and old motorcycles. That's why I do this. But anyway, I know this was a long video, but this was a tale of two swaps.